Vistry Group just lost 55% of their profits in 6 months. 55%. These aren't some cowboys who don't know what they're doing. They own Booz Homes, Countryside, Linden. They've been building houses for decades, and they're hemorrhaging money at a rate that should terrify anyone who thinks the UK housing market is stable. But here's the bit that really matters. While these builders are collapsing, the government's promising to build 1.5 million new homes. With what? With who? The companies supposed to build them can't even pay their own bills. This isn't just another corporate earnings story you can ignore. When house builders start going broke, it affects everyone. Can't buy a house. This is why rents keep rising. This is why government promises that never happen. This is why. I've been digging into the numbers, talking to people inside these companies, and what I found is much worse than what they're telling you. This isn't a temporary problem. This isn't going to sort itself out when interest rates drop. This is structural failure of an entire industry. And when I show you what's actually happening, you'll understand why the housing crisis isn't just continuing, it's about to accelerate. Let's start with Vistry because they just gave us a perfect window into this disaster. Pre-tax profits down to $40 million. Sounds like a lot. Their profit was $90 million same period last year. That's not a decline. That's a catastrophe. Their order book, the houses people have actually agreed to buy, is shrinking. Think about that. In the middle of a housing shortage, one of the biggest builders can't find buyers. How is that possible? Simple. Nobody can afford the houses they're building. The average UK salary is $33,000. The average new build house, $280,000. That's 8 1/2 times income. Banks won't lend that much. Even if they would, the monthly payments would destroy anyone earning average wages. So, Vistry and every other major builder are stuck with houses they can't sell, at prices that make them profitable. Lower the prices, they lose money on every unit. Keep prices high, nobody buys. They're trapped. But it's actually worse than that. Construction costs haven't gone down. Land prices haven't gone down. Labor costs are up 30%. Material costs are still elevated. The builders' margins have been completely destroyed. I talked to a quantity surveyor last week. He told me the real numbers. On a typical $250,000 house, the builder's profit used to be $30,000 to $40,000. Now they're lucky to make $10,000. On some sites, they're actually losing money on every house sold. Something fascinating is happening that nobody's talking about. Buyers have gone on strike. Not officially, not organized, but they've stopped buying. Estate agents are reporting the lowest viewing numbers since 2008, but not because people don't want houses. Because people have finally realized the game is rigged. Think about it from a buyer's perspective. You save for years for a deposit. Finally, get your 10% together. Go to get a mortgage. The bank offers you 4 1/2 times your salary at 7% interest. You do the math. The monthly payment is 60% of your take-home pay just for the mortgage. Add council tax, utilities, maintenance. You're left with nothing less than nothing. So buyers are doing something unprecedented. They're walking away, saying no, waiting. This has never happened before at this scale. Even in 2008, people kept trying to buy. They believed prices would recover, rates would drop, things would improve. Not now. Now people have realized the fundamental truth. The UK housing market is broken beyond repair. The psychological shift is massive. Once people stop believing property always goes up, once they stop believing they have to buy at any cost, the entire model collapses. And that's what's happening. Here's something the builders don't want you to know. They can't actually build houses profitably anymore. Not at scale. Not at prices people can pay. I've seen the internal documents from 3 major builders. Won't say which ones, but their break-even point on a standard 3-bed house is $220,000. The maximum price the market can bear in most areas, $250,000. That $30,000 margin, it disappears with one problem, one delay, one material price increase, one mistake. Construction sites are shutting down all over the country. Not officially. They don't announce it, but drive around new developments. Count the workers. Sites that should have 50 people have 10. Sites that should be buzzing Monday to Friday are dead 3 days a week. The subcontractors are going bust first. Plastering firms, roofing companies, groundworks contractors. They're not being paid because the main developers have no cash flow. When the subbies go bust, construction stops. When construction stops, houses don't get built. When houses don't get built, the shortage gets worse. But here's the real kicker. The builders have already paid for the land. Billions spent on land banks assuming they could build and sell profitably. That land is now worth less than they paid. Can't sell the land without massive losses. They're sitting on stranded assets. Pittman alone is sitting on land for 90,000 houses. 90,000 at current build rates. That's 15 years of supply. 15 years of dead money earning nothing, costing millions in financing. Labor promised 1.5 million new homes by 2029. Let's do the math properly. That's 300,000 homes per year. Last year, the entire industry built 170,000. Not because they didn't want to build more, because that's maximum capacity with current conditions. To hit 300,000, you'd need to almost double construction capacity, double the workers, double the materials, double the equipment in an industry that's currently shrinking, not growing. But even if you could magic up the capacity, who's buying these houses? At current prices, there aren't 300,000 qualified buyers per year. The mortgage approvals data proves it. We're running at about 60,000 approvals per month. That's 720,000 per year. But half of those are remortgages or people moving house. New buyers may be 300,000 per year for the entire market, not just new builds. The government knows this. They have the same data I do. Better data probably. So why promise something impossible? Because admitting the truth that the housing crisis is unsolvable under current conditions would be political suicide. So they promise what people want to hear and hope nobody does the math. When new builds don't get built, the rental market explodes, and it's already exploding. Rental supply is down 40% in major cities. Not because landlords are selling, though many are, because the properties that should exist don't. The new builds that should add rental supply aren't being built. This creates a feedback loop. Rents rise. People can't save deposits because rent takes everything. They can't buy houses, they keep renting, rents rise more. The cycle continues. But here's what's really happening that nobody understands. Institutional investors are waiting for the builders to collapse. BlackRock, Vanguard, major pension funds. They're not buying now. They're waiting for distress. When Vistry or Pittman or Taylor Wimpey finally breaks, these funds will swoop in, buy the land banks for pennies, and build rental developments. Build to rent, they call it. Build to trap is more accurate. Entire developments where buying isn't even an option. You rent forever or you leave. That's the future being constructed right now, while everyone's distracted by government promises. The builders know this is coming. Why do you think they're not fighting harder to survive? Some of their executives are probably already negotiating their golden parachutes with the funds that will buy the wreckage. The builder crisis is destroying the entire supply chain. Brick manufacturers, timber suppliers, cement companies, they're all connected. When builders stop building, orders dry up. Icetalk, one of the UK's biggest brick makers, just announced plant closures. Marshalls, who make paving and concrete products, profit warning. These companies employ thousands. When they close plants, those jobs disappear forever. But it's worse than job losses. These are specialized facilities. You can't just turn them back on when demand returns. Once a brick plant closes, it's gone. The capacity is permanently destroyed. Even if the market recovers, we won't have the ability to supply it. The timber situation is even more dire. The UK imports most construction timber. Suppliers need predictable orders to maintain supply chains. When UK builders stop ordering, suppliers redirect to other markets, getting that supply back almost impossible. This is creating a doom loop. Less supply capacity means higher material costs. Higher material costs mean builders can't build profitably. Can't build profitably means less demand for materials. Less demand means more closures. More closures means less capacity. Round and round until the entire industry is gone. Here's something nobody in government wants to discuss. The construction workers are leaving. Not just the industry, the country. Brexit ended free movement. Eastern European workers who built Britain for 2 decades, gone home or gone to Germany. The skills shortage is critical. Bricklayers, electricians, plumbers, the people who actually build houses. Day rates have doubled in some trades. Sounds good for workers. No, because there's no consistent work. 2 weeks on site, then nothing for a month. The averaged earnings are actually down. Young people aren't entering construction. Why would they? University debt for a profession that might not exist in 10 years. The apprenticeship numbers have collapsed, down 60% since 2019. The average age of a British construction worker is now 47. In 10 years, half will be retired. Who replaces them? Nobody. Because nobody's training, nobody's learning, nobody wants to join a dying industry. Without workers, you can't build houses. Simple as that. All the government targets in the world mean nothing if there's nobody to lay the bricks. The banks are exposed to this crisis in ways they don't want you to know. They've lent billions to developers for land purchases and construction finance. Those loans are secured against land values that no longer exist and future sales that won't happen. I've seen internal risk assessments from two major banks. They're projecting 40% of developer loans will default by end of 2025. 40%, that's billions in losses. But they can't call in the loans. That would trigger immediate collapse of major builders. So they extend and pretend. Extending loan terms, pretending everything's fine, but it's not fine. It's a disaster delayed. When it finally breaks, and it will, the banks will need bailouts again, except this time the government's broke, national debt at 100% of GDP. No room for another 2008-style rescue. That's why they've basically stopped lending for development. New development finance approvals down 70%. They're protecting themselves by strangling the industry. This isn't hitting everywhere equally. Some regions are already in free fall. The Northeast, house building down 60%. Builders have abandoned the region entirely. Too poor. No buyers, no point. Wales, major sites mothballed. Welsh government promises mean nothing when builders won't build there. The Midlands, supposed engine of growth. Reality, empty developments, hundreds of unsold houses. Builders taking 40% losses just to get out. Even the Southeast is struggling. Sure, London prices hold up, but try selling a new build in Reading, Crawley, Stevenage. Ghost towns of unsold houses. The only place still functioning, central London. But that's not British buyers. That's international money looking for safe havens. And even that's drying up. The official unemployment figures don't capture what's happening. Construction workers without work don't always sign on. They're technically self-employed. No work just means no income, not unemployment. The real number of people depending on construction who've lost income, probably 2 million. Workers, suppliers, estate agents, mortgage brokers, surveyors, lawyers, all the auxiliary industries that exist because houses get built. When construction stops, these people don't immediately show up in statistics. They burn through savings, take on debt, hope things improve. By the time they appear in official figures, they're already destroyed financially. This hidden unemployment is creating a secondary crisis. These people can't spend, can't buy houses, can't pay rent. The economic damage ripples outward, affecting everything. Why will 2025 be when this explodes? Several triggers hit simultaneously. First, the development loans come due. Billions in financing that can't be renewed because projects aren't selling. Second, the government's first-year housing target gets missed spectacularly. The political pressure becomes unbearable. Third, major builders run out of cash. They've been burning through reserves. Those reserves are nearly gone. Fourth, the spring selling season fails. When houses don't sell in spring, panic sets in. Fifth, interest rates stay higher than anyone expected. The hoped-for cuts don't materialize or don't matter. When all five hit together, the collapse accelerates from slow motion to real time. In every crisis, someone profits. Here's who wins. When builders collapse, institutional investors with patient capital. They'll buy land banks at massive discounts, wait 5 years, then build rental empires. Foreign sovereign wealth funds, they're already positioning. When UK builders fail, overseas money takes over. The very wealthy who can buy without mortgages. When prices crash and nobody can get financing, cash is king. Large corporations needing worker accommodation, Amazon, logistics companies. They'll buy failed developments and convert them to worker housing, modern-day company towns. The winners aren't British families wanting homes. It's international capital wanting assets. This isn't a temporary problem that'll sort itself out. The fundamental model is broken. Houses cost too much to build relative to what people can pay. That gap isn't closing. It's widening. The workforce is disappearing. The supply chain is collapsing. The financing isn't there. The buyers can't afford. The government can't help. We're watching the end of private house building as we've known it. What replaces it? Probably state-directed construction, government as developer, social housing for all because private housing for none. That's not a prediction. It's the only mathematical possibility when private builders can't function. Vistry's profit collapse isn't a corporate story. It's the canary in the coal mine, the first major casualty of a systemic failure. When builders can't build profitably, they stop building. When they stop building, supply craters. When supply craters, prices rise. When prices rise, fewer can buy. When fewer buy, builders lose more money. The death spiral accelerates. The 1.5 million homes promise. Fantasy. The housing crisis solving itself. Impossible. The market recovering, not without fundamental restructuring. If you're waiting to buy, you might be waiting forever. If you're hoping to sell, better do it now. If you're renting, prepare for permanent renting. The UK house building industry isn't just struggling, it's dying. And when it dies, it takes the property dreams of millions with it. This isn't pessimism, it's mathematics. And mathematics doesn't care about government promises or corporate press releases. The builders are going broke.